All right, so let's build a game. For this specific game, we're not gonna let AI just make up the idea for the game. My producer Dave and I have been actually brainstorming an idea for a game that we thought would be fun to make. The game is tentatively called Library Survivors, very similar to the Vampire Survivors game, but you're playing as a librarian. You need to put away books while rowdy kids take more books off the shelves and then leave them scattered all over the map. As the librarian, you go around and you pick up the books and you put them back on the bookshelf. As the game goes on, more and more kids enter the library, they become more rambunctious, they pull more books off the bookshelf, and your job is to continually pick up these books and put them back on the bookshelf before you get overwhelmed. There's a little chaos meter, and with this chaos meter, the more books are on the ground, the faster the chaos meter goes up, and you gotta get all the books up off the ground before the chaos meter hits 100%. Sounds a little complicated. If you know Vampire Survivors, it's sort of like this reverse Vampire Survivors game where you have swarms and swarms of kids, but the kids are actually trying to avoid the librarian while causing chaos, while the librarian is sort of trying to chase the kids around and pick up books and put them back on the shelf. So now that we've got the concept for the game, I went ahead and typed out the basic idea of the game, but I want ChatGPT to help flesh it out more. Please help me flesh out the following game concept. Help me with the gameplay loop, the power-ups, the win and lose scenarios, how to increase difficulty over time, and any other gameplay elements that are necessary that I'm not fully thinking through. Now for this, I'm actually going to upgrade it to 03 Pro, but if you only have 03 or 4.0, it'll still do a pretty good job. I just want it to spend a little bit more time thinking through this one, and we'll go ahead and submit it. And it probably will take a minute or so for it to really reason through and think about this game. So it took GPT a little over 5 minutes to think about this, and it put together a fairly extensive outline and breakdown of what this game should be. It included everything from gameplay mechanics to character upgrades to sound effects and graphic recommendations. All in all, a really solid first effort from ChatGPT. Here are 2 screenshots that you can pause in case you want to read the entire conversation. So we've got a pretty well fleshed out concept. There's a few other things that I think are missing from this brief that I'm going to add in real quick. So things like kids shouldn't just knock books off the shelves. They should also be able to take the books and run away and drop them in other places of the library to create more chaos. The player should be able to see when a kid is carrying a book so that the player can actually chase the kid down and take the book away from them. Kids should actually actively try to run away from the librarian. Over time, more and more books should be available to come off the shelves so that the difficulty increases with the volume of books as well. And with each level the player is at, it should get more and more difficult to level up. So going from a level 1 to a level 2 should require 10 XP, but going from a level 2 to a level 3 should require 20, and it should get harder and harder to level up each time. And I'm going to say, please update the brief with this additional info and create a markdown file with a full explanation and all of the gameplay details that we've decided upon. All right, so now it's going to add that stuff to the brief, but give me a markdown file that we can use and pull into our next step. All right, and after about 4.5 minutes, it says I've folded your 5 new mechanics into the Kid AI, difficulty curve, and player interaction system, then compiled everything into a single markdown brief. Here's our markdown brief. We'll download it, and we've got a pretty decent breakdown. Now it's time to move on to the coding phase. And to do the coding, I'm going to use Claude Code. Now, I haven't played with Claude Code a ton. I did a tweet recently asking what your favorite tools are, what I should spend more time messing with, and probably overwhelmingly the one that people said the most was spend more time with Claude Code. It's really good. So I've spent the last couple days sort of learning the basics of Claude Code, and yeah, I really like it. So we're gonna build out this game using Claude Code. I don't want to go too deep into a tutorial, but here's the quick rundown of how to get Claude Code working on your computer. So if you head on over to anthropic.com/Claude-code, this is where you're going to be able to get the instructions. The first thing you need to do, install Node.js on your computer. Simply click on this link, download it for your operating system, run the installer. Once that's installed, it wants you to run this command here inside of your terminal. Now, personally, I still like to use an IDE when I'm using Claude Code. An IDE would be like Visual Studio Code or Cursor or Windsurf or something like that. And you can install Claude Code code inside the terminal inside of one of those apps. It's really simple to do. I'm actually going to use Windsurf, but let me show you using VS Code. If you head to code.visualstudiocode.com, download it for your operating system. Once you have VS Code set up on your desktop, come over to this little button here that says extensions. It's got like 3 little squares and a diamond. And then up under search, search out Claude, and you'll see Claude code for VS Code here. Now, if you're in Windsurf or Cursor, it will look identical. Windsurf and Cursor are forks of VS Code. You would install the exact same extension and do it the exact same way. So we'll go ahead and click install to install this extension. We'll trust the publisher and install. And now you can see we've got Claude code installed. Now, when you're inside a tool like VS Code or Windsurf, you want to have a folder open where it's going to save all of your files. So we'll go ahead and click on this little Explorer icon in the top left, click open folder. I have a folder on my computer that I just call code, and I'll create a new folder inside of code called library survivors. We'll click create, and then we'll open this folder as our folder in the Explorer here. And now we're good to start creating. You can see that when I installed that extension, it put the little Claude logo up in the top right of my VS Code. So if I click on this link here, it's going to fire up Claude code for me. Now, the first time you use it, it's going to have some setup instructions. Go ahead and click yes to proceed. And you can literally start using Claude code by typing right here. Now, again, I use Windsurf over VS Code. So I'm actually going to close out of VS Code and we'll just pick up where we left off in Windsurf. You can see it looks the same icons on the left side. If I click on plugins here, you can see I've got the Claude code plugin installed. It works exactly the same way. We'll go ahead and open our folder, go into code, open library survivors, and I'm going to build basically the same exact way, just inside of Windsurf. I'm going to go ahead and right click new text file. And when I do this, you can see we got our run Claude code button up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to open up Claude code in our little terminal. I'm actually going to close out of this. And over in our Explorer here, I'm actually going to take that brief that we created earlier, and I'm just going to toss it over into our new folder. So now it's got the brief of what we want to create. We can actually preview the whole brief that ChatGPT wrote up about this game. And one thing that's really cool about using Claude code is down here, I can click Shift Tab, and you can see that I can turn on auto accept edits. So as it writes code, I can tell it just go ahead and update everything and just auto create it. If I hit Shift Tab again, it puts on plan mode where it maps out a plan for creating whatever it is you're going to build, but it won't actually write code yet. And I really like to use this plan mode to figure out what the next steps are, have it map out a plan, and then move on to the next step of coding up the plan that it just came up with. That way, if part of the plan doesn't make sense, you can tell it to, reconfigure the plan a little bit and then move on. All right, so to start planning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to this library survivors design MD, right click. I'm going to copy the path here. And then in my prompt box, I'm going to say, map out a plan to develop the game in this brief. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste in the path that we just copied. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to just start doing its thing. And just like that, Claude code got started. It put together an extremely well-detailed development roadmap for us. And it included things like the game engine and even the expected development times, which kind of made me laugh because I'm doing all of this in just a day. But for the first version, I wanted to do something a bit quicker and simpler than what it suggested. So I asked it to revise the roadmap and develop the game in JavaScript, which it did perfectly. So now the last step was to have it create a new markdown file with this roadmap so we can refer back to it later. Now comes the coolest part about Claude code. I could just tell it, go build the thing now, and just walk away from my computer. It might take 10 minutes or so, but it'll just start building it. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it on auto accept edits here. We'll grab our development plan, copy the path, follow the plan mapped out here, and build the game that we designed here. And then I'll grab this path. And there's probably a better way to do this. I'm sure I'm gonna get all sorts of comments that are like, oh, you're doing this way too slow. You can do it by clicking this hotkey or that thing or whatever. I'm so new to coding, and you're learning that right now. If you're a pro coder and you're watching this video, you're probably gonna see me make a lot of mistakes. But if you're not a pro coder and you wanna make your own game, you're seeing everything I do, mistakes and all. So let's go ahead and have it build this out following the plan and the design. We'll leave auto accept edits on and just hit enter, and it's just gonna do its thing. I'll start building library survivors following the development plan. Let me begin with phase 1, core foundation. It's building a checklist now of everything it needs to do. And you can see it's just going to go now. And at this point, it's asking me if I want to proceed because it needs to run some extra initialization stuff. Let's just go ahead and say yes and don't ask again. So it just goes and does the stuff it's supposed to do. We'll see over here, it's starting to actually build out new files and the game is now underway. So cool. I could just kind of step away and let it do its thing now. So now it gave us a summary here and we can see everything that it did. I've successfully built the foundation of library survivors following the development plan, project setup, game loop, state management, input system, asset loading, camera system, rendering system, player entity, etc., etc. Now it says run npm run dev to play the game at localhost 3000. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and open up a terminal. I do this by clicking up in the top right, this little, I don't know how to describe this button, but it's got like a larger box on top and a smaller rectangle on the bottom. I click this. This opens up my terminal down here directly inside of Windsurf. I can copy this npm run dev here, paste it down into this terminal, and we get a screen that looks like this. Library survivors. It's got start game instructions and settings. It says you can use the arrow keys or WS to navigate. Those don't appear to be working. Yeah, it's pretty much just a frozen screen here. So let's jump back to Windsurf here. First, switch it to plan mode. I tried opening the game on localhost and the menu loads up, but nothing works. Arrow keys, WS, buttons, mouse clicks, etc. None of it is working when attempting to play the game. We'll go ahead and submit that and let it review its code so we can find the problem. Okay, it seems like it found the issue after about a minute of thinking. It figured out the error, explained the changes needed, and says it's a simple fix. So let's go ahead and just click yes and accept edits. And a few minutes later, it says try refreshing the browser and the controls should work now. Let's go check this out here. Refresh, still no luck here. So I'm still running into some issues after some back and forth. This time it told me to check the console and send over any issues it's seeing in the console. I tried again. As you can see, I'm clicking buttons, but nothing is working over in the main screen. But as I click down or one of these arrow keys, you can see in the console, it is noticing that I'm clicking these buttons, just nothing's happening on the homepage. So I'm gonna go ahead and in this console here, right click, copy console, jump back to Windsurf, and I'll say, it's still not working. Here is the contents of the console. And then I'll just kind of give it a space and then paste everything in here and hit enter. Here's everything that it saw in the console. So it can actually read that and figure out the issue. And I'm going to continue my troubleshooting now. All right, after several back and forth messages with Claude Code saying, hey, it still didn't work, try again, still didn't work, try again, I finally got something that seemingly works. So I can actually press up and down or S and W, or the mouse doesn't work yet, but the keyboard works with it. Settings doesn't do anything. If I click on settings, nothing happens. Instructions gives us some basic instructions here. Hitting escape comes back to the main menu. And if I click start game, you can see we're in the game. However, that chaos meter at the top is going insanely fast and we're already a game over. So it's not quite working the way we want it to. The game loop isn't quite doing what we want. It's time to get into actually refining and dialing in the game. But before we do that, I want to tell you about this really cool platform that I've been playing with. And this is not sponsored. This is just something that I thought was cool and wanted to share with you. And it's called Delphi. If you head on over to delphi.ai/Matt Wolfe, this is trained on my YouTube videos, my podcast, my newsletter, various blog posts I've written, things like that. And you can actually ask it questions and it will respond in a way that I would likely respond because it's trained on all of this information I've put onto the web. So I can ask it a question like, what AI tools should I use to develop a video game? And it will respond in a way that I'd be likely to respond. If you're diving into game development with AI, there's some killer tools. Google's AI Studio, Leonardo, Runway, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, Luma AI. And well, it's not trained on the video you're watching right now just yet, but after this video's live, this would actually probably be a different response because it's got essentially like my brain in it at this point. So if you want to check it out and actually chat with my Delphi, my digital clone, head on over to delphi.ai/Matt Wolfe and have a conversation. It's even got a cool voice mode where you can simulate having a call with me. Anyway, just wanted to share that with you really quick because I thought it was cool. Now, let's get back to chapter 4, refining. So I'm gonna jump back over to Windsurf and just give it a bunch of details about what I'm seeing. Starting with stating the obvious, the chaos meter moves way too fast. You can only last about 4 seconds when you start the game. And 2, books should start on the bookshelves. They shouldn't start on the floor. Kids entering the library are supposed to be knocking the books off the bookshelf or picking them up and running away with them. They shouldn't already be on the floor when the game starts. All right, let's try again after it ran that update. And we can see, okay, cool. So the chaos meter isn't moving yet and all the books are starting on the bookshelf. I don't like that I can walk through the bookshelf, so that's not ideal. And also I'm not seeing any kids come in to knock books off the bookshelf. I also noticed an issue that if I hold shift, I can move a little bit faster, and that stamina bar in the top left moves down really, really fast. But when I run out of stamina, I can keep on moving just as fast. It didn't seem to have any sort of impact whatsoever. So I gave it a few notes on what needs to be fixed based on what I'm seeing. Let's run it with plan mode and have it map out a plan for us. So we've got a new plan mapped out here. So let's go ahead and say yes, auto accept edits, and let it work through its plan again. From here, Claude Code spit out a new version. I was starting to realize that this was going to need quite a few rounds of refinement. This version took about 30 seconds for the NPCs to actually show up. And for some, oh, wait, I take that back. We have our first NPCs at 30 seconds in. The main character can walk through bookshelves. The shelves had empty slots without any books being on the floor. And there were a bunch of other elements that just needed some fine tuning. So I gave Claude Code a new round of instructions and it got to work updating the plan and putting together a new version. This next one was a bit better, but still full of holes. The NPCs were constantly running away to the edges of the map. Books were still missing on the bookshelves, and the overall gameplay logic just wasn't quite dialed in yet. So I added another round of instructions and sent Claude back on its merry way. And then I did it again. So you can see the books are just like disappearing. And again, they will run away from me if I try to get close, which is good. And again, and again, and again. So this is actually starting to be like a fun game now. Let's go chase this person down. Give me my book. It ended. My chaos got to 100%. So it seems to be working. All right, now I finally got the game to a point where I'm pretty happy with it. It's actually fun to play, and it's not too hard, but also not too easy, and it gets increasingly more difficult. And this is the current result of the game. My little blue square is my librarian. You can see all the bookshelves. We've already got 2 kids knocking books off, causing havoc over here. I could go and put these books on the bookshelf. You can see the chaos is already starting to move up, but I can grab a book, put it on the shelf, knock that chaos back down by cleaning up after these dang kids. We have level ups. It will randomly pick among the 3 available level ups. I think we've got 5 or 6 total level ups right now, but you've got things like increase your maximum stamina, reduce the chaos gain, how quickly that chaos meter goes up, increase the distance you can pick books up from. I'm going to increase the stamina because if I hold down shift, I can actually sort of speed run. But if you look in the top right, I've got a stamina bar that runs down. So I can only run for so long. And the game is actually legitimately fun. All of the little kinks and bugs are worked out. There's just a couple problems with this still. One, it still looks ugly. I wasn't shooting for a game that was just a bunch of rectangles moving around. And 2, there's no sound effects. It would be nice if there was a little bit of that like satisfying sound when you pick up a book and put it on that shelf. And as you pick up more books, the sound effects get more rapid and more satisfying. At this point in the process, when I have something that I like and I want to build off of, I kind of want to back it up. I want to make sure that I can restore back to this point. If I start trying to add graphics and sound effects and do other stuff and it just totally breaks the game, I want to be able to jump back to this sort of save state. And to do that, I'm going to use GitHub. If you don't already have a GitHub account and you want to follow along, make sure you create a free GitHub account. I'm going to create a new repository for this game. I'm going to call this one the Librarian Game For now, I'm going to make it private and I'm just going to click create repository. That's all I have to do. So now I have this URL to my repository, github.com/MrEflow/the librarian game. I will copy this URL to this repository and I will jump back into Windsurf down here. Now to do this, I'm actually going to use Cascade inside of Windsurf. Instead of actually having Claude Code do it, I feel like when I have Cascade do the backup for me, it actually seems to do a little bit better job than when I use Claude Code. So I'm going to say, I created a new private GitHub repository for this game at github.com/blah, blah, blah. Please commit and push this current version to GitHub. And it's going to go ahead and just do the work for me to push it over to GitHub. And it took about a minute, but we can see here, perfect. I've successfully committed and pushed your Library Survivors game to GitHub. Here's what I did. Initialized the Git repository, added a remote origin, staged all files, etc. Now, at any point, if I ever want to, I can actually come back over to this right side and say, restore my game from this version on GitHub. If I open up GitHub in my browser here and just reload this, we should see all of our files here now. So everything is backed up for us on GitHub, ready to go, and I can restore from this backup at any time now. Just a nice little way that if you start going down the path of building something out and you just go off in the wrong direction and it totally gets all messed up and you go, man, I want to restore from an old save state. Well, this is what GitHub does for you. It lets you get back to that old like save state essentially. So let's start creating some graphics for the game and we'll start replacing our little rectangles and background and things like that with some actual good graphics. I'm going for more of like a cozy style game, 16-bit graphic kind of thing, similar to like a Stardew Valley sort of graphics. So I started with the floor for our library. To do this, I jumped into Leonardo and used Flow for the first handful of prompts, but I wasn't really getting what I wanted. I did test out one version that Flow generated, but got some ugly tiling when importing it into the game. So I went to the regular image creation section on Leonardo, clicked to turn on the tile option, and entered this prompt here. And finally got something way cooler that fit the vibe I was looking for. Yeah, this is looking really, really good. I like that background. I think the tiling of it is good. The size they picked of it is good. You can't really see any seams. Yeah, I think that's our background. Now we need a character. We need a librarian character that's not just like a cube running around. Next, it was on to our librarian. I started with this prompt for the style of the librarian, but was using Leonardo Phoenix and it wasn't quite generating the style I was looking for that would match that retro 16-bit vibe. So I switched over to Lucid Realism, which is kind of funny because I was trying to create 16-bit characters that aren't realistic. But using the same prompt as before was spitting out images that were much closer to what I wanted. Once I settled on a look, I asked it to make me a second version with the legs together so that I could make a basic walking animation. I then tried out removing the background before heading back into Claude to implement my new character changes. After testing a bit, I saw some issues with the character size, the image colors, and how the character looked when standing still. So I gave Claude a few new instructions and realized I would need to adjust the image colors myself. Now it was on to those pesky kids. I first uploaded the image of our librarian as a style reference and then asked it to generate some images of kids who were up to no good. And for some reason, and I can't imagine why, all the results were boys and brunettes. So I tweaked the prompt a bit and settled on 3 different characters that fit the bill. Then I repeated the process I did for the librarian of generating a second image to simulate walking and removing the backgrounds. All right, so I've got these players dialed in now. They still have the color issues. I'm gonna fix that in a minute, but you can see we've got some characters walking around now that steal the books. We've got multiple characters. We've got our little brunette kid, a little red-haired girl, and then there also should be like a little blonde character that pops in as well at some point. And then they just keep on multiplying as the game goes on, causing more and more chaos, knocking more books off the shelf, making the game harder and harder as you go. I think we're gonna be pretty good on graphics for this. I'm gonna do a part 2 video later on where I actually rebuild this game in either Godot or Unity, and we'll really dial in the graphics when we go for that game. But this one I wanted to make a basic JavaScript version, and we've got a pretty solid game here. So I'm gonna go fix the colors in Photoshop real quick, then we'll add some sound effects, and we've got our game. I'm gonna do this real simply. I'm in Photoshop now. I opened up this character and this character. We can see that the jacket's slightly different color on this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to color drop grab the color of the jacket here, and I'll jump over to this one and we'll make sure the jacket's the same color on this character. We'll go ahead and use the color replacement tool here, and we'll just paint in the jacket color like so, until we're happy that it looks pretty much the same. And then I'm gonna go do that for all the characters, and hopefully we get a much more consistent color. All right, so here's where we're at with the game right now. I actually created a little background animation for our loading screen here. Basically, I just generated an image in Leonardo, said I wanted it to be like a Stardew Valley style 16-bit animation of a librarian sitting in the library. And then I took the image that it made, put it through VO3 to animate it, and that's this background that you're seeing animated here. And I also got rid of the settings since we didn't have any settings to change. So we just have start game and instructions. Instructions needs some work here. I just gave Claude Code some instructions to fix it. And now we have an instructions page that's actually readable. So perfect. When we actually play the game, there's still some issues with the characters kind of changing colors, but you can see our character walks around, they face in the direction that they're walking. Our NPCs walk around, they're little kids. There's a few different variations of the kids. We've got our leveling up, and the game is currently working as intended and pretty much looking as intended as well. And now that everything's working the way I want it to, let's add some sound just to sort of tie it all together and make it feel like we're actually playing a game. The gameplay is actually cool. It's fun. I'm really enjoying it. Every time I sort of demo it or test it, I find myself like playing for longer and longer and longer and trying to beat my last score, which I think is an indicator that it's a pretty good game. That's pretty fun. I'm digging it. But let's get some sound effects in here. First off, I want some background music. And to do that, I'm going to jump over to Suno.ai. I think it'd be cool to have two songs, one for the sort of main home screen, and then one for when you're actually playing the game. So it's not the same song throughout. So I'll go to create. I'm going to turn it on instrumental. I don't need any lyrics in the song. And I'm going to do lo-fi, cozy, retro, video game music, calming, soothing. I just want it to be like relaxing, comfy music. So let's see what it gives us for that. Here's the first version. Let's go ahead and download it, toss it into our assets here, copy the path, set this song as the background music for the opening menu screen, loop the song when it finishes playing. All right, so it should set that as our opening background song. And while it's generating that, let's go back to Suno and generate another one. I'm gonna use the same prompt again. I'll pull this other song into Windsurf, into my assets folder as well, copy the path, paste that in there, and let it set that as the background to the actual gameplay. And then I also want some sound effects. So for the sound effects, we're gonna go to 11 Labs, and they actually have a sound effects generator over here. Let's see what happens if I just do like menu select. Kind of like this one, this sample 3 here. Let's download that, pull this menu select sound into our assets, and then I'll start typing up my prompt while it's still working on our background music here. So I'll copy the path here and say, on the menu screen, use this audio when a new menu item is selected. And now I finally got a game that I'm actually pretty happy with. We've got our main menu with our background music, our instructions. Let's go ahead and start a game. The game volume was a touch loud, but as you can hear with this clean recording, we added all of our music, a really satisfying thud when you drop a book off, kids giggling when they're being little jerks, and I even added a sound effect for when you run out of stamina. You'll also notice from this gameplay recording that I was able to fix the graphics using Photoshop and made some additional minor tweaks to the pace of the gameplay. But overall, this game is really fun and kind of addictive. I was able to do all of this in a day, and I'm going to continue refining and improving over the next couple of weeks. I'm thinking part 2 of this series will be moving the game over to Unity or Godot, where I can really take the game to the next level. But in the meantime, here's a link to both the game and the GitHub, which will also be linked up in the description, so you can try it out or even take it and make your own version. If you do make your own version, please link me up over on X so I can try it out. thank you so much for nerding out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from it. I'm super excited to keep working on this game, and hopefully I'll see you in part 2. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for nerding out with me today. If you like videos like this, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I'll make sure more videos like this show up in your YouTube feed. And if you haven't already, check out futuretools.io, where I share all the coolest AI tools and all the latest AI news. And there's an awesome free newsletter. Thanks again. Really appreciate you. See you in the next one.